economy, data is one of the most valuable assets. But how can organizations share data while keeping full control? The International Data Spaces Association, or IDSA, is a global nonprofit that sets standards for trusted data spaces, secure environments where organizations exchange data while preserving sovereignty. With over 170 members across 31 countries, IDSA is driving interoperable and secure data ecosystems worldwide. A data space uses a federated architecture, meaning data stays where it is. There is no central storage and no vendor lock-in. Through common specifications and protocols, participants can publish data, negotiate usage terms, and exchange information securely and transparently. In Malaysia, the IDSA Hub, inaugurated in 2024, is facilitated by Digital Connect Society, a member of Malaysian Technical Standards Forum Berhad and a technical committee member of Department of Standards Malaysia. Together, we are enabling trusted collaboration, protecting data sovereignty, and shaping a smarter digital future.
Your email is your first online impression.
Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the Unboxed² series. The evening show about AI tools are universally accessible. Technical efficiency is no longer a differentiator. On this episode, we will unpack this dialogue and look at the organizations and secure lasting scalable growth by prioritizing transparency, ethics, and human-centric governance to earn consumer and employee trust. While constantly asking questions, I'm your host, Stephen Poon. Good evening, everyone tuning in. Unboxed² episode 5 brought to you by the regular team from PREI, which is the Policy Research and Engagement Initiative at the Digital Connect Society, DCS, and supported by Mila University. Later on, we will hear from the Global Vice President of Digital Marketing at LiveRay, where he leads a global team driving SEO, which is search engine optimization and organic discovery, conversion rate optimization, web strategy, paid media, campaigns, and social media growth, as well as helping build AI-first products for highly regulated LiveRay customers. For those of you who don't know, previously he served as global head of organic discovery, web SEO, and content at Square NYSE XYZ, which is New York Stock Exchange in San Francisco, managing distributed teams across the US, EMEA, which is EMEA, which is Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, and of course APAC, the Asia Pacific region. Before joining Square, he held leadership roles as SEO team lead at Search Matrix US and International in Munich, Germany, which is where he built and scaled high-performing search and content teams. In this debut episode series, we explore how the world has become a living lab, deeply reshaping our daily lives while we struggle to keep up. Through our contribution to achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, we learned that there are two carefully selected SDGs that lead us on the journey of attaining sustainable growth. World Artificial Intelligence AI Appreciation Day is celebrated annually on July the 16th to recognize the societal impact of AI. It intersects significantly with SDG 8, decent work and economic growth by promoting AI as a tool to drive inclusive economic productivity, foster job creation, and improve global labor practices. At the same time, it highlights AI's contribution to society and encourages ethical development SDG practices. This vision aligns perfectly with SDG 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, which promotes building resilient infrastructure, fostering sustainable industrialization, and accelerating inclusive innovation using advanced technology. Hearing a lot about how can organization effectively balance the rapid growth of AI with sustainable development to ensure it plays a crucial role in shaping a better future. Luckily, our guest is on hand to give us a quick lowdown from Japan on the topic AI plus trust equal to growth, the new digital advantage. So please welcome Sebastian Ecker.
Awesome. I think I'm live. Hey, Stephen, good to see you.
Hello.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Sebastian. How are you doing?
Doing well. Enjoying my hot and humid evening in Japan. So
Okay,
yeah.
We are 1 hour different, right?
Yeah,
we are 1 hour
difference,
different. Yeah, we are 1 hour different.
Yeah.
So you are 7 o'clock over there.
7 o'clock. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And it is still 90% humidity, but it's elevated. Not complaining.
Okay, but you're staying at home with the air condition running.
I am in my local co-working space.
Are you? Okay.
But yes, full on air conditioning. So
everything is all settled.
Okay.
So how have you been doing for the whole day today? Before we come to the podcast.
Good working. Good working day. I have a weird schedule because my team is global, so I have to work early mornings,
the late night
APAC time, of course, and then of course in the evenings as well. So it's like I feel like I'm 24/7 at this point. And I'm sleep, but it keeps
you just sleep
24/7.
You just sleep whenever you have time. Put it this way. so you don't have a sleeping time. You just sleep whenever there is a time for you.
It's whenever one country, whenever it's the rest of the world is asleep and Japan is awake. That's when I'm like, you know what? I think I might get a break here. No, it's not as bad as I'm putting it, but I do have.
Okay, but I think AI do a lot of work actually nowadays because we can work from home. So in the many perspectives, in the different levels, so which is good. So how do you feel that working? I mean, with AI, especially to support your work, which is especially for your workload. Do you want to tell us how did you make use of this AI? In the meantime, how do we trust them? I think this is a good question. This is a topic we're going to talk about this today.
Yeah, exactly. I won't give away all the answers right now, but I'll put it this way. One of the interesting challenges is because I've trained teams in a pre-AI world, and now I'm training a team in a post-AI world, and I can tell you it's completely different. And specifically in terms of the pace of information coming to team members, because I have to train team members right now. There's some folks who don't have that much digital marketing experience, more general marketing experience, but less so digital. In a pre-AI world, there would have been a lot more of a step, or I should say a lot longer road for them to get the information, for them to understand concepts and put them in practice. Today is completely different. All the information is accessible to them, and we'll get into that as well. But basically, they're able to do a lot more at once and at the same time. So a big piece is I'm trying to figure out what one person can do given this knowledge gap, and when if I need someone new and where that next person has to come in. So it's been an interesting challenge, but it's fun.
Sebastian, I realized I think I'm in the frozen mode. Am I actually?
Oh, you are frozen. Yes.
Okay, but you can hear my voice. My voice is coming through, right?
I can hear you. I can just see
Okay, I think the same
frozen,
issue
so
happened actually during our tech run. Okay, Sebastian, just give it a few seconds. I just leave the studio, then I come back
no
here again.
problem. Yep, no
Okay, you
problem.
just stay there for a bit. Just only a few seconds. I just need to sign out and sign in
Yep.
again. Okay.
All right. Maybe I can tell a joke to the audience while Stephen comes back on, or maybe I'll try not to make a fool of myself.
Okay, here we go. We are again. Sorry about that. So, I think I'm okay. Looks okay now. It's just we have a little bit of switch. Okay, thanks. Apologies for apologies to the audience, and there was a little bit of technicality, so I see myself frozen. I think it's better I just leave the studio, then I come back here again, because otherwise you see me frozen all the way through to the end. It's not very nice. So I don't like to see Sebastian to look at me like, why Steven frozen? Okay. As long as I'm coming through clearly auditable, I think there's a good point here. Okay. Thanks for some of the notes I just shared that, which is you have just mentioned the things how you make use of AI, put it in work, so the pre-AI and the post-AI. Okay, so I think of course today we're going to talk about this more in details about the things that we how do we understand the context of the AI usage, especially the trust. Okay, Sebastian, let's set the scene before we get into that. Right, moving from simple AI adoption to true AI trust requires shifting your focus from purely technical capability to deep systemic responsibility. To successfully build sustainable digital growth through responsible integration, organization must confront critical questions across 5 fundamental dimensions, which is we have this first, governance and regulatory compliance. And organization must move past abstract ethical principles and operationalize actual compliance structure. So let's look at system auditability. Sebastian, what continuous monitoring tools are in place to check algorithm drift, performance accuracy, and output fairness?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question. So there are different ways that you can look at it, and at least from a monitoring perspective, you can almost think about it from 3 different levels. There's almost like the technical model performance, then there's the business outcome, and then there's the human impact. And so, okay, so maybe let's start with the technical monitoring. That one actually I think it's very interesting, because then you get into try to understand the accuracy. You try to understand the hallucination rates, which really is a massive problem, and is a big reason for the governance layer. Is it's like, yes, from a legal perspective, but then also from like a legitimate accuracy perspective. And then there's the cost piece. And so maybe let's talk about the cost for a little bit, because I know one of the topic today is, or one area that I'm very much in the middle of, which is AI replacement for people.
Yeah, we talk about this later on.
Exactly. And so when we think about it from a technical, from a technical monitoring standpoint, so very quickly on like the cost piece, in some cases cost, like Claude Code, for example, can cost more than employees. And there's some very interesting, today I was actually reading a few articles about like NVIDIA, and actually Uber, for example, their entire AI budget.
Mhm.
I don't know if you heard about this, but they spent their entire 2026 AI budget in 4 months.
Wow.
So when you
How
think
much is
about
that?
that's just
It's a big, it's a big money, isn't it?
it's going to be like 100 million, I think. Maybe not 100 million. But if you think about it from like a
Okay.
monitoring standpoint,
Uh-huh.
they ended up having to put a cost cap of around like $1,500 per employee. But if there would not have been this monitoring in place, they could have gone up to like 500 million. And so, and then you get into the actual outcome piece, outcome and like fairness. This is another area that I kind of love. I used to study back in my university days. I used to study linguistics, business, like international business and linguistics. And so now that I'm in the trenches in a global environment where I have to use AI in different languages because I have to create content and research content in different languages, one thing that I've noticed firsthand and my team has noticed is the differences in accuracy between languages, cost also between languages. This gets very interesting. Okay. So on the accuracy piece, because AI, and especially let's use ChatGPT as an example, ChatGPT is an American company. Its base is English. It is primarily trained based on English data. And like I would say close to like 70% of it. So you're going to get a more accurate output in English than like French. Though French and Spanish and other Latin languages are pretty close aligned. But even firsthand, we notice some gaps. Then you get into character-based languages, Japanese, for example. The model not only does the accuracy dramatically plummet, but the cost doubles. So you get to a point where you get half the accuracy and double the cost. The reason why is because of tokens, because of the way that large language models have to split text. For example, Japanese, they can't do it as well. So then you get into a point of, depending on how you have it integrated in a company, you're going to end up having maybe an AI tool that costs you double the price of an employee with like maybe 70% accuracy as before. So, and then there's the final piece, and then I'll pause here, which is on, I think you mentioned on like the like total, the final output, not just like the listing output, but like the ROI, what you're getting out of it. So, are you spending all this money doing all of this just use AI to get an answer, something that you could have like done yourself, or are you doing it for something that is actually tangible, that you can pinpoint with actual business impact? So something that is like providing actual support and not just enhancing your laziness.
Interesting point you have made. I have taken down. I think we will break it down a little bit more in detail later on. Okay, let's look at the data integrity and algorithmic explainability. So trust is heavily dependent on data inputs and the ability to demystify black box machine learning models. So let's look at the data hygiene. Do we possess a centralized data infrastructure capable of ensuring clean, structured, and timely data feeds?
So let's see. Well, the one way to look at it from like the centralized perspective is that the AI will not necessarily solve all of your problems, but will expose maybe existing data problems. Like if the source is incomplete, outdated, and whatnot, AI is only going to distribute these problems faster, right? So the centralization piece, I think this is something that I've been thinking about quite a bit because my company deals directly with this topic. And so, and even internally, we've talked about this, like from our own product perspective, what does centralization mean? And so one area you can be like, well, centralization means having everything in one place, which I don't think I agree with. It's more having the governed data layer that's able to pinpoint to all of these different pieces. I think a lot of companies, they think that centralization is like, oh man, I got to bring like even from a marketing standpoint, like, okay, my help center into like this bucket, or my development website into that bucket. It's like not necessarily true. What you need to create is this foundational layer. And this is actually an area that I was talking about when I met you at the event in Kuala Lumpur last month.
Yeah.
Have this foundational piece that, yes, that acts as the centralized layer, that governance layer that protects, you could say, like the outside data versus like the inside data. And then it's able to connect all of these other pieces. The critical thing though here, and I don't know if I'm going to a rabbit hole, so feel free to bring me back if you want, but the key thing too with the centralized piece is making sure that there are no leaks and how you deal with the leaks. Because there's been a few interesting stories that have come out with regards to like government agencies using private AI tools. I don't know if you've heard of like the Anthropic in the US government, because the US government is trying to use, a private company. And then there might have been like some leaks that happened, and there were a lot of questions with regards to the model is private, as a private company, but it's being used for US government purposes. And so the US government had to ask almost like permission to Anthropic about how it can be used. And then this is where we get into this very interesting catch-22 of like, well, who actually the model, like if a private AI provider supplies the government, who is decides like the ethical boundaries, you can say, right? And so that goes a little bit beyond the centralized layer, but not really. I do think it connects it quite well, because if the private company is a centralized layer of a public organization, who's got the final say, who makes the final decision, and then the private company can very well distance themselves and be like, I'm not gonna support this. And so then the model ends up not working the way that you want. So these are these, like, I don't have all the answers to that, and I know the US government doesn't even have the answers to that, or Anthropic. So, but this is an interesting discussion of like the next layer.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of insight actually. You just mentioned that. This is really wonderful. I think the audience is really exciting to listen to what you just said. Okay, let's look at the cultural readiness. Especially, I think you had a great experience in terms of like cross-cultural. Now you're living in Japan. So let's look at the cultural readiness and psychological safety. Technological integration triggers intense friction if employees feel that automation directly threatens their professional identity. So let's look at the role reinvention. How are we actively redesigning job matrix to showcase AI as a collaborative partner rather than replacement tool?
Oh, I love that question. That's a great question.
There we go.
I love it because, look, I work in tech, and all the headlines in tech are around this. And again, like I've seen my former employer, right, slashing 40% of its workforce because of AI, right? And so even we've had this discussion internally. And I mean, look, here's what I'll say. Slight tangent, and then I'll bring it back to this. Generally speaking, I'm pretty against this whole notion of replacing people with AI. There's some nuance there. I 100% agree that a lot of jobs, unfortunately, can't be 100% replaced. So that I really acknowledge that. But if I had to think from a general perspective, it is a case-by-case basis. But there's the notion, and I'm going to repeat what the NVIDIA founder said. This is unfortunately not my own thoughts. I'm just stealing his, but I'll I'll give him credit because he did say something very
as long as I give a little citation there, I think it's okay.
exactly
Acknowledgement,
a little acknowledgement to NVIDIA founder Jensen Huang, but he said something, and I'm going to paraphrase it, which I really appreciated, which is like you've been given, what was it, like you've been given the most powerful technology in the world, and instead of using it to enhance people, you're using it to replace people, which is ridiculous. Which is true, which is, I look at it, so for example, going back to actually your first question, which was, which I was saying, like how I'm hiring, how I'm hiring and how I'm developing team members. Well, a lot of tasks that I had to do 7 years ago are now fully automated. It doesn't mean that replaces that person that used to do these tasks. It just means that now this person can do these tasks in 1/10 the time and can now do 9 more other things simultaneously, thus drastically increasing the output. I look at my company, we're a pretty lean team. We've never really done digital marketing before, which is why they hired me to kickstart this effort. The last thing I want is to have fewer people. The reason why is I know that we have to run at a pace that is double our competitors if we want to be really successful, and especially beating most of them. We're not going to do this with fewer people. Absolutely not. We're going to do this with more people and way more AI integration, but smart AI integration. Okay, so then going back to your initial question, which was redefining the metrics, if I remember correctly, well, it's going to be less necessarily around the output volume. Well, it can be about output volume and reduced hours, but these days I'm seeing it a lot more in terms of efficiency and quality output. So I work, before I joined this company, LifeRay, I was a consultant. And so I was consulting a lot of teams and seeing how they're internally using AI. And so many of them were using it for volume. I'm going to create a bunch of content. Let's use the content example. I'm going to create a lot of content, and they thought that this was the best way to showcase their work as job security and how they're going to drive growth. It didn't work because algorithms and people noticed that all of these pieces of content ended up being kind of AI slop. The volume was there, but the quality wasn't there, which then in the end was lack of trust from Google's algorithm and the users. And we're even seeing it with my team. The content that we crafted that had more AI generated just doesn't work as well. But when we put double the amount of time, again, with the AI for sure, to still help us have some efficiency there. So we notice a much better output. In terms of the job metrics, the short answer here, it'll be more on the actual quality output, maybe creating better workflows, sort of efficiency gains. Like, what are reusable workflows that you're doing now that'll help you save like 10 hours later? Or things like, for example, like identifying risk. Hey, we found this vulnerability thanks to using AI that without AI we would not have been able to find like 2 weeks, right? That's not an output piece, that's a quality specific metric. So this is the way that at least I look at my team in terms of how they're using AI, is specifically from a quality perspective. I report this back to the CMO and the CEO. Like, we only crafted X amount of piece of content, but look at how well it's performing and why we actually need more people and more AI to increase the quality.
Okay, Sebastian, let's look at the matrix, because you highlight the matrix a couple of times, and also I like to get into that part of the discussion a little bit deeper. Sustainable value and the ROI strategy. Unclear metrics lead to fragmented implementation that fail to justify upfront infrastructural costs. So from the value matrix definition here, are we measuring AI performance through raw efficiency gains or through deeper relationship-driven value?
Well, I think you kind of need, it's the way I see it is you kind of need both, but it's more of a sequencing. Which one comes first.
Yes, how does it work
About it.
in
So
your professional context?
you could say that the efficiency is the first layer of value because it's a
Mhm.
little bit, I think it's just easier to quantify in some ways. So, because then you have like the efficiency, which is time saved, how much time you saved, how much cost was reduced,
Mhm.
and like whatever output was increased.
Mhm.
You can also look at it like another way of looking at efficiency is effectiveness,
Mhm.
which is, are you providing higher quality decisions, fewer errors, and maybe like from a marketing standpoint, like better conversions, right?
Mhm.
The um the thing about efficiency though, okay, so the thing about efficiency is that you can't look at it in a one-dimensional way because you can save, like, for example, let's use like customer support as an example. This actually
Mhm.
is one of my favorite examples. So customer support, you can easily save 5 minutes or $500 by replacing a
Mhm.
person with an AI chatbot, like a live chatbot, right? So from an efficiency perspective, that
Mhm.
works. So you will have a metric to show, but from an effectiveness perspective, which I'll lead into the relationship value in a minute. From an
Mhm.
effectiveness perspective, that $500 for 10 minutes saved aggravated the customer because no one wants to go on the phone and speak to a robot. And so whatever
Mhm.
efficiency you think you gain from that perspective, you're losing in the relationship value that then comes afterwards. Um, but one actually example that I love, that has both efficiency and value. I don't know if you've heard. Do you know the company
Mhm.
like Help Center, right? Support Center articles. And so
Mhm.
when you go on a website, it's powered by Intercom. Uh, their LLM is so good that even personally, I actually enjoy interacting with them because I know that they grounded their LLM in really good data. Their model
Mhm.
works really well, that I don't care that I'm speaking to a human or not. I generally don't care, but they have the option, their relationship value, where they do such a good job. There's that
Uh-huh.
option to chat with a real person. They don't hide it. It's part of the tool. So it gives you the option like, hey, you can get all of this automated. And I've used their product quite a bit for some like services that I was using. And
Mhm.
because their LM is so good, it's able to transcribe and like paraphrase their thousands of Help Center articles into an answer.
Mhm.
You can still chat with someone. Versus then the flip side to that is what I was saying before, which is the customer service. Like when I'm calling United Airlines, well, the first thing you come when you call United Airlines is a robot on the phone. And let me tell you, every single time, I am not happy. And this is a great example of, efficiency at the cost of actual
Uh-huh.
relationship and value,
Mhm.
and I think ROI. So to answer
Okay.
your problem, yeah, this is
Okay, Sebastian, you're talking about you have emphasizing multiple times about the customer support. So I'd like to get into this part of the understanding customer and public trust.
Mm,
Gaining internal operational buy-in requires fundamentally different proof points than winning over external consumers. So let's look at the content authenticity. How are we proactively deploying watermarking and provenance tracking to combat synthetic
mm,
media risk?
yeah. It's the watermarking is interesting because I think it's, from a visual media perspective, it is part of the solution, but I don't think it's the entire solution.
Mhm,
One of my former clients. Well, I still work with them a little bit, which is a
mhm,
icons website. So they deal
mhm,
directly with, um, with like actual icons. You can buy icons, you can download the icons, but a lot of people,
mhm,
instead of buying the icons, they're just gonna screenshot the icon And so obviously they have to do a lot of watermarking from that perspective, but these can be easily removed, honestly, and copied out. So in that case, like provenance tracking is very, very hard. The one piece though on that end that we've had like some discussions on internally, which is how which is like the number one, like the back end metadata around it. And like invisible, that's what it is. Like these invisible markers that the human eye can't see, but an AI tool can detect. If you put the image in an LLM, it'll be able to denote whether this is like a legitimate, whether it's like your own or someone else from. I think they're called like cryptographs, I believe, something like that. But just like invisible markers, basically.
Interesting. Good to know that, actually.
The other piece too is, and this might be going a little bit away, but it's like when you think about it from a product perspective, it's very easy to create whenever you do these AI generated images. It's very easy to get to a point of bait and switch, and so you're going to craft like content of your product that looks completely different than your actual product as a way to like lure in the customer. So then in the end, it's like you're creating visuals that are not truly representative of the reality, which get into a little bit of the bait and switch piece. So the whole point here is transparency.
Okay. AI is reshaping how people discover brands and evaluate information. Successful organizations integrate AI is not merely to automate tasks, but as a strategic tool to scale content quality, refine internal processes, and empower teams to focus on meaningful, trust-driven customer relationship. So, which is first, the shift in brand discovery and search. Second, scaling content and decision responsibly. Third, the human elements of branding. The fourth is perspective on AI integration in marketing. So let's look at the ROI. How should leadership measure the financial return on responsible AI integration versus pure automation?
Let's see. Well, there are many different ways that you can look at it depending on the implementation and what its uses are for. So as a catch-all, if you're thinking about responsible AI, it's almost like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like risk adjusted return, basically, right? So if you think about it from like this responsible and governance aspect, the whole point here is that you're using it to better your internal processes, to improve like a lot of different things. And one of them is could be around like productivity, revenue uplift, better conversions, improving retention. So you have all of these lagging metrics that you can maybe pinpoint thanks to that AI implementation. So the way that you can look at it is not just the growth, but also the losses and risks avoided. This was like a big topic that even in the pre-AI world, that's become even more true now, that basically, like from an SEO perspective, a lot of the work that I used to do in SEO almost like 10 years ago was helping companies that were prone to algorithm penalties to make sure that they wouldn't be impacted by these algorithm penalties. And so the conversation shifted away from like, hey, can this guy help us grow like 10, 20, 50% to, hey, let's make sure this guy can help us ensure that we don't get hit by these penalties. And so when I think about the work that I used to do, because that was a huge topic with these massive enterprise companies that had been hit by these algorithm penalties. At some point, they almost care less about the growth, but to make sure, like, hey, like sustain this program in place. So if you think about it from an AI perspective, it's very, very similar. It's can it actually can you quantify it from like a loss and risk avoided? That's another way to look at it, and that's when it's implemented in that's sort of like risk adjusted return.
I just quickly want to look into this responsible AI. You talk about this responsible AI. This is something come across in my mind about the governance. Who within the executive team should own the responsible AI framework and compliance?
Yeah. Oof. So I don't think it should be owned. Yeah, that's a tricky question because the integration should be owned by mainly IT and compliance, but it cannot be owned exclusively by them, because everyone has accountability of how it's used. Like there's this thing called shadow AI, which is basically people. Okay, so shadow AI is like you have like your internal tool implemented, but anyone can use any sort of AI tool that they want, right? And so there might be like governance from IT that they have to use. You have to use this specific tool in this specific way, but the governance doesn't necessarily like mandate it. So that's what I'm saying, that it's like it's owned by compliance or IT, but it's everyone's responsibility to make sure that it is used in the way that it has been set up and governed. And so a lot of people, so we ran into this thing too, where it's like we had our internal AI tool that frankly just like we were analyzing a bunch of private data set, and what some people did is they ended up using an external tool and put that data set in there. But then what happened is then you actually leaked PII. Really, really big deal. And that's what I mean. This is a really good example of why I'm saying that responsible AI is genuinely, it's a super boring topic from a marketer perspective, because you're like, I don't care.
Exactly.
I don't want to do the thing. But genuinely, when like, if I'm a senior person, I have to make sure, like, if anyone's listening who's a senior marketer or a team lead or an executive, it generally becomes important because it becomes your responsibility. The buck stops. You're going to become accountable for your team and how it's being used and governed internally. Now, the thing too is governance should also be proportional to the risk, because like a tool helping an employee format a presentation doesn't really require the same amount of oversight as an AI system evaluating like job applicants or like internal data. So there is also that interesting nuance as well, where there is a little bit of a line of governance where it's like, or there's a little bit of leeway as well.
Exactly.
As long as you're not like giving out private information. I mean, if it's something that's public, then okay, you don't have to really go crazy. You don't have to go crazy. Like compliance shouldn't have to go crazy about it, right? So, like compliance should basically define the guardrails and review high-risk use cases, but it shouldn't become the approver of every single prompt. That's why I'm saying that it's up to like team leads and whatnot in terms of the ownership. If that makes sense.
Yeah, some points taken here. Okay, Sebastian, if everyone uses the same AI models, how do brands maintain a unique competitive advantage?
Oh, yeah.
I always discuss this with my colleagues. What is the framework? What is the advantage? What is the why? If everyone using the same AI model.
No, I really like this one. So I think it comes down to like two really important pieces, which is the results in the end will be different, especially if one has better data behind it, better processes, and better prompts. So in the end, the model is only as good as how someone or company uses it, or how it's governed, and how and what data it has access to. Yeah. Yeah. Go for it.
Okay, Sebastian, let's look at the future proofing here. How will AEO, which is answer engine optimization, AEO, reshape corporate marketing budgets over the next 3 years?
Oh, oof. So, okay. I'll try not to have this extremely long answer because I have a lot of thoughts on this one. So I'll try to keep it somewhat succinct. The interesting that's happened with AEO. Okay, let me actually take a quick step back. Before AEO, SEO, so search engine optimization, or traditional search, as it's kind of called these days, was in the shadow of a lot of companies, right? You always had the big brother, which was paid search and campaigns getting all of the money. The reason why is because you could prove ROI versus traditional search. Was always in the background, maybe like I was geeky, even though like it provided in some cases like 50% of a company's revenue. At Square, my team provided, it was close to like 40 to 50% of marketing's new like net profit. So it was massive. And so, but I had to do a lot of work to get it growing, to get in a company and like make sure that people are paying attention to it. What's interesting with AEO is that the execs are immediately paying attention to it. And you're seeing people like throw money at it. I was speaking with, last year, I was speaking with this person from China. And so they were basically, and also from Korea actually. And so they wanted to work with me, not from an SEO perspective. They didn't care about SEO. They're like, no, we just care about AEO or GEO, even though at the end of the day, like you're doing largely the same thing with some different nuances. So it's kind of, I don't say it's a full rebrand. Again, like I said, like devil's in the detail. There's a lot of nuances there, but what's happened with AEO is that it's unlocked search marketers to have crazy visibility in front of the executives, in front of the executives, and get that visibility and get that budget. Now, it's changed the budgets, but I don't think it's changed the teams. Like this is interesting too, because like VPs and whatnots, like some companies are hiring dedicated like AEO managers, but they still sit within the search team. Do you see what I mean? So it's like it's reshaped the budgets, it's given out more money because of like all these executives basically freaking out that, oh, my traffic's gone, I need someone dedicated to look into it. But in terms of the ownership and the internal structure, that has stayed within the team. So at least like people understanding that it's not replacing SEO, it's just expanding search in a new territory. Yeah. And I'll pause here.
Okay, let's look at the risk. What is the long-term reputational risk of over relying on AI for customer-facing decision?
Well, at the end of the day, people don't separate the AI from the company. So if your AI isn't working well, so let's use the example of Intercom again. If Intercom, how can I put this? Like, okay, so like if a company was using the Intercom product as their chatbot, if a user has a very bad experience around it and the AI is providing a bunch of hallucinations, it's not working well, the user is most likely not going to blame Intercom. They're going to blame the company that implemented Intercom. And so this is where you have to be very careful. And that's why from a governance and risk perspective, you have to put in a lot of work to ensure that it doesn't hallucinate, that it reflects a complete set of data, or at the very least, this is an interesting part though, that there's the honesty of what it can or can't do. Because we have this notion that AI can do everything, but at the end of the day, it's like we're just talking about, right? It's only as good as what you give it. It's only as good as the prompts that you give it. Same model, different people. And so if you don't have it trained the right way, you not only face issues with the customers not being happy with what they're getting, but then it puts the reputation of the company at risk because of what I just said. They're not separating the AI from the company. For them, it's the exact same thing, even if their product is completely different. If they see it as like it's not working, the company's reputation is going down 100%.
Okay, Sebastian, in the era of commoditized technology, trust has emerged as the definitive competitive advantage for organizations deploying artificial intelligence, which is AI. So when advanced models are accessible to everyone, growth is unlocked not by automating everything, but by securing the confidence of users, employees, and stakeholders. So let's look at the conceptual framework and the formula. How does the traditional definition of digital advantage change when the equations shift from purely technical capacity to a dependency on human trust?
Okay. Well, in the end, it'll. So the key thing here, and I think this relates pretty well to what I was saying, what we were talking about before, which is that as AI capabilities do become widespread and widely available, I would say that the advantage will really depend on how employees and customers are willing to rely on the system. So basically, like you could say that trust is created through consistent performance or like transparency, like what I was talking about before, that it's not about providing like the best or perfect answer, but it's guiding the user in the way that they want. And if it doesn't know, there's a big difference. Like if an AI system doesn't know something, it'll either hallucinate, meaning break trust, or it'll say, I'm not sure, your internal data is missing or don't have that information, which you may disappoint the user, but at the very least, you're not breaking that trust. So I think in a lot of ways, you could say that companies should not promise that AI is perfect. And so we are seeing it, you go on ChatGPT or Claude, there is that little thing at the bottom that says like, AI can make mistakes, always check. And I think this is where I think it gets interesting, is that a better ways that companies should approach it is that like the more credible promise is not that AI is perfect, is that AI is governed, monitored, and correctable, and it can be improved. The other point that I think is interesting that I was just thinking about, we've been talking so far about like where AI is being used and the governance and everything. Something that just popped in my mind. The second was what could be a competitive advantage is knowing where not to automate, where not to use it. I was just thinking of like a United example of the phone, right? Like these are cases where it's the trust for the user. It being a competitive advantage is that you're not actually using AI for that use case. You are using an actual person. So then you figured out the balance of automation, efficiency, and the relationship value. Again, going back to the previous question, which then creates the right amount of trust with the right amount of governance, because it's used in the way that we want it to be used and not in every single location.
Okay, let's look at the customer dimension. And you talk about these early on. I'd like to tap into this part of the dialogue, which is in the second, which is in the next level. Customer dimension and market differentiation. How do consumer demographics such as Gen Z, high digital integration versus older generations, preference for human interaction like us, affect how trust must be cultivated?
Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, there's a big gap, which is the older generation is going to be more wary of AI. they are going to trust it more. So I think this one relates a lot more to my previous comment of they're going to want to use a tool, a platform that that knows where maybe not to use it and where it should be used. Versus Gen Z. Gen Z is a whole different animal because, man,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Tell me about this. All my student Gen Z. They are really different animals.
of course. Maybe you should answer this question, Stephen. You might have more.
Yeah, but I would like to hear from your perspective. I tell you, mine is phenomenal. I tell you.
I bet. I mean,
Go on. Yeah.
The risk here is the risk I think with Gen Z is like the total flip side is the over reliance and the fact that they think they're going to get every single answer from the AI tool, right? And it's like it's the same thing as like when when you're a kid, you go back home and the parent says something that contradicts what the teacher said, and then you at a dinner table and you're like, but the teacher said this, and you're going to trust more the teacher, right? And now we're getting in a phase where it's like it's even worse because the kids have Gen Z, they have access to so much information that now they're not only contradicting parents, they're contradicting their teachers. They have access to all this information. They're going to trust this information a lot more, and they don't have the concept of hallucination. Like this is a thing about the experience that I have in marketing is one of the reasons I've been successful in my role and by also training people, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but it's just something that I know I do well, is I question everything. If I see a stat, if I see data, if I see something written, my brain always goes in the direction of like, where did this come from? Does that make sense? And it's not from like a lack of trust, it's just that I know by experience, I'm generally careful with when I see something that either sounds too good to be true, or if I see something that fits perfectly in my narrative, I'm like, well, wait a minute. The problem here with Gen Z is they don't have the experience or the maturity, and I'm sure you can vouch for that. But the experience and maturity to second guess that information. Like, hey, I saw that on ChatGPT, I researched it on ChatGPT, showed me this. So, I mean, just today I was actually, this is just today I was having a conversation with someone on like a team member, and this team member is not doing very well at work. And so she had to do a forecasting exercise. Okay. And so when she asked her team members like, hey, where did you get these numbers? Her answer, I kid you not, this is verbatim, this happened today. Her answer was, well, Gemini told me. That was the answer. And that genuinely scares me. Because at the end of the day, for me, it doesn't matter whether Gemini was forecasting. Gemini could have done the best forecasting in the world. What scared me is the fact there was no thought process.
Is that true?
Is this true or not? Right? Because then the answer could have been, Gemini told me, but I spent an hour afterwards double checking. So what Gemini did the hard work of putting all the numbers together. Then I reviewed it, spent some time reviewing it, and it's all accurate. But what's going to happen is the Gen Z is not going to go through that exercise of checking and vetting and going over hallucinations because, and I would say it's not just Gen Z. If I'm being honest, it's, I mean, it is mainly, I would say it's like any marketer or any person that hasn't had experience with it enough. Like you could say that, have you heard of do you know I'm going on a slight tangent, but you'll see where that comes back. In the US, there's this thing called, in high school and college, you have like first year student is a freshman. Year, sophomore, junior and senior. And the term, I love this one. The term sophomore. I don't know if that's true. That's what my father told me, but sophomore is Sophocles and moron.
Serious? Sophocles and moron.
Because you're in the second year of doing something and you're gathering knowledge. You think you're starting to know everything. And so you're starting to be a little bit dangerous. You're starting to have arguments. You're starting to understand things. But at the end of the day, you're just your second year, and you're a moron in the way that you don't know anything. You think you know, but you don't. And that's what's happening. To bring it back is the more experience you have with AI, the more you question, the more you realize hallucination. Same thing with me. When I first started, I was using it a bunch, and I got like.
But actually, you're right. You have just hit the spot, because this just happened a few days ago of my student. They think they know, but actually not. They don't. They think they know, actually. No, I don't think so. They just like what you said, they found it, Gemini, AI or whatever. Actually, hey, how come you talk to me in such a way? But I don't think you know, actually. So did you cross-check? What is the fundamental resources, actually? These are the things they don't know. They just they just pluck it from the sky and say, okay, here we are. I done my assignment.
Exactly. You definitely know probably more on my end with this.
Yeah, exactly.
I know from marketers, but like the students is a whole different thing.
Yeah, it's true. Right. Let's look at the technical sovereignty and ethical risk. You talk about that. I'd like to tap into this part. How can independent third-party audits be successfully integrated into the rapid, continuous life cycle of an evolving generative AI model?
The auditing piece is interesting. I mean, it's I guess you're talking about like third party. If we're talking about third party auditing, it's not necessarily to certify that a specific model will remain safe forever, but it's rather to evaluate whether the ownership, the documentation, testing, or incident response maybe is actually working properly. We've got like certification, like for my company LifeRate, I'm forgetting what it is. It's like ISO. It's ISO something certification, which is specifically around that, and it's something that developers specifically look for in terms of how AI is integrated, and that it's managed across like what I just mentioned of the documentation, the internal integrity, and whatnot. And so I know this is an area that auditors generally are looking at in terms of its deployment. Yeah.
All right, I think it's time to pivot. Okay, we have been breaking down this issue on the show, but I want to share some new perspective and check in on what which is our listener, are thinking, and let's dive into the feedback. The trust and accuracy dilemma, the reality. Consumers are increasingly skeptical of fully automated content and interaction. So the findings is 86% consumers say authenticity is a key factor when deciding which brands they like and support. 75% of consumers are concerned about misinformation or fake content generated by AI. Up to 3% and 5% of responses from top-tier large language models, LLMs, still contain plausible sounding but entirely fabricated hallucination, according to what you just mentioned earlier on as well. So how can brands build trust using a technology inherently prone to hallucination, fabrication, and bias?
Well, it's the number one piece is grounding the model in responses in, I don't want to say like approved information, but I guess for lack of a better word, it would be like approved information. And also limiting the scope. I think this is also something that I was mentioning back in Kuala Lumpur, which is like the what was it that I say? The AI in a closed loop, AI in a closed loop environment, right? And so Now, okay, so the closed loop environment is pretty much like what we're talking about. You get that governance layer that it's trained on a specific set of data, and now the whole corpus, right? Because AI, like the general out of the box ChatGPT is trained on like what you call the common crawl, which is basically the entire web. But if you're expecting, if you're a company and you're using that as your model, then it's going to get a bunch of hallucinations because it's not trained on like specific internal documents. So that's why you want to work it in this closed loop environment. The other piece to that, and this is exactly how we work internally, even if you have it in a closed loop environment, I still notice that there are some hallucinations. Because again, it's very important to know how AI works. So to bring back a little bit, at the end of the day, I'm going to overly simplify it. All right, this is a massive oversimplification, but it still works. Which at the end of the day, a large language model is a predicting model. It's trying to predict what comes next. That's ultimately fundamentally what it is, right? And so, if and it has a specific what you call like a temperature setting. And so depending on the temperature setting, which is like conservative or more liberal, you'll get different types of answers. That's how you know it's more of a predictive model. But so what's going to happen occasionally is because it's a predictive model, it can still make a mistake even if it has the right information. And this is where you have to put a lot of work with the prompts and also asking it to provide like citations and provide sources, and literally treating it like an intern of like, okay, you said this, where did you get this from? Even for internal documentation. And if you build a model that basically has that set up, actually what we did at LifeRay, because we're building out a bunch of AI agents. And so I was the one who built out the documentation for all of the AI agents that we're building for internally and actually our future customers. One of the things that I added to the documentation is a agent that checks the agents. So what that is, so for example, you have an agent that's let's say a localization agent, okay? Localization from English to Japanese. So that is going to be trained on whatever data, content, bag of words that you have, et cetera, et cetera. Before the human in the loop review, what I asked the team to build is I need another agent that is going to cross-reference all of this data with actual sources, citations, et cetera, have it used even like a different model to double check and make sure that everything is accurate. So, so internally at large companies, you don't necessarily need to ask, like the user shouldn't be asking for those citations. This is something that you should be giving out of the box in some ways. And then that way that the user is immediately getting trust in terms of the answers and what you're getting out of the AI, because then you know that at least it's grounded in some sort of, it's grounded in sources and you're showing the citations, and that's at least like you're showing accuracy. Yeah, the other thing too, and this is going back to a previous comment that I made, which is the trust piece, especially in industries that are prone to hallucination and like highly regulated or complex industries. It's honestly claiming that AI will never be wrong or it'll be perfect, but that
I don't think so.
Exactly right. I
don't think so.
Errors are anticipated, acted, and then corrected. So that's my nuanced point.
Great. Yeah, of course. I think in the professional practice, you have a lot of experience of that because you are using it as well. Okay, let's look at the SEO and the AEO, which is we talked about that earlier on. I'd like to go into a little bit deeper, which is understanding from here. SEO versus AEO, which is the answer engine optimization. The reality. Let's look at the reality. Generating AI, search like Google's AI overviews, answer user queries directly, reducing traditional organic click-through rates. So the finding here, some SEO models predict a 25% to 60% drop in organic search traffic for informational keywords as AEO takes over. So, and also my findings here, 93% of the data managers agree that high quality structured data is now the single most critical factor for appearing in AI generated answer. And also over 70% of users prefer a direct synthesized AI answer over clicking through multiple website links for simple inquiry. So the question here is, how do brands survive when AI search engines summarize their content, keeping traffic on the search page and starving creators of clicks?
Man, yeah, I'm in the middle of this. It's very interesting too, because there's one of the interesting things too is it's not only are these AI, let's use Google as an example, or even like any search engine. It could be Naver in Korea, Google. They all have now these AI overviews, right? Like these direct answers. Not only is that taking away traffic, but then you can still get traffic if you're ranking number 1 or number 2 or number 3. But here's the thing, like there's plenty of articles or keywords we rank like number 7, number 8, get no clicks. Like back in the day, a few years ago, you could rank on page 1, even at the bottom page 1, you would still get some clicks. You would still get something out of it. And then you could still show something and then grow to make it larger. And so now, not only is you have the AI overviews, but your total real estate has shrunk so much that position page 1 doesn't matter, doesn't mean anything at all, right? So it's almost like a double whammy, double pain. So anyway, so this whole topic, I can go on and on for many hours. So
Yeah, I know that.
I'll try to keep my answer a bit succinct on this one.
But never mind, we just take it another day there. So let's look at the data privacy and ethics. Okay, the reality. Let's look at the reality. Data leaks and unethical scraping pose massive legal risk to enterprise growth. So the findings here: 60% of organizations have established formal ethical frameworks for AI usage, yet only 20% actively monitor their system for algorithmic bias or data drift. Over 80% of data breaches involving AI tools are caused by employees passing sensitive corporate or customer data into public, consumer facing like LLMs, large language model. So the concern here is how do enterprise teams leverage proprietary data to train smarter AI models without violating customer privacy or intellectual property laws?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. Okay, so on this one, there are a few ways to go about it. The first one is like, it's all about data classification, right? So you have your data. How much of this data public? How much of it is internal? How much of it is confidential? How much of it is personal, regulated, I guess you could say, and maybe third-party owned? Because just because you have access to the data does not mean that the organization has the right to use it for model training, even internal model training, right? It's like in PII, you can even there's even like data storage laws where you can only store like elite data no more than 2 years. Okay, so and then not only that, but it's defining the purpose of each of these data sets, how much of this data can be processed. So basically you need some sort of like approval flow for each of these, right? So at the end of the day, it's if you don't, for enterprise use cases, like the secure retrieval from approved data sources, it is preferable to permanently training sensitive information into a model. So at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to this whole data classification and understanding which of the data that you have, you can use it for model training. Yeah, I think there's some laws in some countries. This is an area. Obviously, my company is deep into it. I'm less into it because that's the legal team. But I know there's a lot from like the different countries that these laws really do matter. And there's some countries where it's like they emphasize like data minimization into external models and how much you're even like allowed to give out. But this is an area that's more like the legal team.
But actually, because it's quite new, it just happened lately. So there's a lot of things need to be like, which is monitor and also need to cross over checking. So need to be consistent. So need to standardize. So it's going to take a few years down the road in order to get everything ready. Yeah. So, okay, Sebastian, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining us today, all the way from Japan, virtually, and sharing your expertise. You have given us a lot to think about. It was an absolute pleasure, Sebastian. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me. That's a great conversation. And maybe my closing thought is, it's at the end of the day, AI has always been around us. If you remember, IBM Watson, IBM Watson was around like 10 years ago, right? I actually used IBM Watson 10 years ago for SEO purposes before it was cool. But what's changed is how accessible it's become. And
evolving.
Exactly, accessible and how it's evolved. And so then therefore more people have access to it, which is phenomenal from an economic perspective, but then provides a lot of changes and a lot of risks as well. So I appreciate the conversation. I'm glad we're having it.
Thank you very much. Actually, it's very difficult to get you this one, and I'm glad I met you in the conference the other day. So that's how I get you. I said I need to host you. So that's the reason I approach you. So because the things what you said on stage, and then there was a really a lot of pointers I taken down. So I think that will be good to host you to share this thought with our audience which in this part of the world. So yes, definitely. And then I'm looking forward to the industry 5.0 and the 6G. So there's another phenomenon will wipe out the whole thing. There will be different experience, I believe so. But we will see anyway. Thank you, Sebastian.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much.
Okay, a little food for thought. AI must serve as a catalyst for trust and human connection, not just a tool for efficiency. By positioning AI as a collaborative partner rather than a human replacement, which is Sebastian has highlighted this, organization can enhance decision making, secure brand authority in AI engineer optimization, which is another call we call this AEO. So, and deepen customer relationships through radical transparency. So some of the points I have just made here, like I divided caller trust-based AI integration. So first, human-centric workflows. Automate repetitive operational tasks while reserving strategic, empathetic, and creative direction for human professional, which is Sebastian highlighted there. Second point is radical transparency. Disclose AI data sources, usage policies, and algorithmic logic openly to build unshakable customer confidence. The third point here, value-driven content. Shift focus from high volume AI generation to high utility, deeply researched content that satisfies strict search engine quality standards. So the last point is relationship preservation. Deploy AI to predict customer needs and streamline service without eliminating vital personal interaction, which exactly what Sebastian highlighted earlier on. Right. Before we go away, a couple of hypothetical questions here. Think about that when you leave today, which is for this podcast. First, let's look at the authenticity paradox. If an enterprise successfully uses advanced AI to perfectly mimic empathy, hyper-personalized care, and resolve 100% of customer issues without human intervention, has it actually built genuine long-term trust? Or has it merely engineered a highly convincing illusion of a relationship? So the second hypothetical question here, let's look at the authority dilemma. As answer engine optimization, which is fundamentally AEO, increasingly synthesizes internet data into single conversational answers. Should brands focus on optimizing their content to be easily digested by AI scrapers, or will the most trusted future brands be those that restrict their proprietary insight exclusively to authenticated human spaces? Right. AI plus trust equal to growth. Is this the formula? Over to you. With that, Unboxed² series is a live podcast organized by the Policy Research and Engagement Initiative PREI from Digital Connect Society DCS and supported by Mila University. To keep up with the show, go to DCS Facebook page, which as you can see was our technical master poster earlier on. That was our episodes of a truly incredible season we have lined up for you. So please be sure to like and follow our DCS Facebook and wherever you watch and listen to live podcasts to never miss an episode. If listeners are curious to know more about us or find more information, please drop me a line. Email address as indicated of the left top corner of the screen. Thanks for tuning in. Till then, take care and each other happy evening.